So here's what I find mind-blowingly fascinating.
Yeah.
We've learned that there are ways that we could engage with ourselves like we were engaging with someone else. And language is one tool we can use to do it. And it involves coaching ourselves through a problem using our name and other like second person pronouns, words like you. If you think about when do we use names and second person pronoun you? When we think about and refer to others. Like most of the time I use names, it's when I'm addressing other people or thinking about other people. So like, Laura, what is she doing right now with my wife? You know, Danny, I'm using names. Names in our brains, like this is the currency of thinking about others. So what happens when you use your own name to think about a problem? It's like a psychological jujitsu move. It's automatically switching your perspective and allowing you to start engaging with yourself, advising yourself like someone else. I'm
horrible, I'm stupid, I can't do this, I'm never enough, or I gotta get myself out of this. When we speak from I as opposed to Lewis, you got this. Lewis, you are good enough. So what happens when we come from I?
So I is a signature of being immersed in the experience. And that can lead us down the rabbit hole of rumination and worry, and use your favorite descriptor. I call it all of that chatter. Ruminations when you're spinning about the past, worries spinning about the future. In each case, you're spinning, you're making yourself nuts. I, me, my. Chatter is all about being so zoomed in on the problem, you can't think about anything else.
Something I learned in the last couple of years, that I wasn't good at this until about 2 years ago, and the more I practice it, I have found this technique, maybe there's a term for this tool that you have, I have found this technique to be extremely life-changing for me. You talk about the mental time travel, is that what you mentioned? Like time travel, mental time travel. Looking back to see how you've overcome something. When I'm going through challenging situations now, especially something that happened a few years ago, there was a challenging situation that I was like, man, this sucks. This really sucks. And it wasn't fun for a few months. I remember saying to myself, the only way that I could get out of it without feeling like pain every day and feeling like taken advantage of and abused and all these things was to say, this is happening in my favor. In 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years out, I'm gonna look back and realize, oh, this happened so that I could do this in my life, so that I could have a better experience in my relationship, so that I could be a better leader in my business. It's almost like future time traveling.
Totally.
And just telling myself over and over, this is happening in my favor. This is happening to support a greater mission in the future. And when I think that way, I'm like, okay, I can handle this.
People tools are really interesting to me because I'm a social psychologist, so I care about how we interact with one another. But when it comes to chatter, there are some myths out there. So we're gonna have some myth busting right now. So when people experience chatter, they're often intensely motivated to talk about it with other people, to share their emotions, to get help and support. There are a couple of exceptions. If the chatter is around things that we experience shame or embarrassment about, then we don't want to talk. But all the other things,
we vent.
We want to find someone. Let me unload.
Is that good or bad, unloading on our friends or family?
Well, it's complicated. And I'll tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't help us work through our chatter. And it can even make it worse. So let's say, you and I, minus the geographical differences that we share, we're friends, right? So let's say I call you up and, hey, I'm really struggling with something. I need your support. Let me help you out. So you start asking me questions about what happened. I start sharing what I felt, and we keep going back and forth. That makes me feel really good about our friendship. I feel really close and connected with you. And research shows that when you vent, that strengthens friendships, right? But if all we do is harp on what happened and what you felt, in technical terms, that's called co-rumination. If we just ruminate together, I leave that conversation and I'm just as upset as when I started. So instead, the best kinds of conversations when it comes to managing chatter, they actually do two things. You do need to connect emotionally with someone else. There's value in
Empathize with them.
Empathize, critically important, right? But at a certain point in the conversation, the person you're talking to ideally can help you broaden your perspective, You might nudge me to, hey, look at the big picture. How have you dealt with this? And get me to mentally time travel. Help put this in perspective. That's the signature of a great conversation. That orientation is very different from, hey, let me just vent. Right. And I think there's a really important take-home lesson here for people who are listening, because if you know that there are these two pieces to getting good chatter support from others, that lets us be a lot more deliberate about who we seek out for support.
Right.
So I was mentioning before, like I've got a board of advisors when it comes to chatter, and like 3 people I go to for personal problems, and 4 for if it's professional, like work-related issues. And these are people who I know they will empathize and connect, but then also really help me try to work through the problem. It's not complicated, right? 2 steps, right? Listen, deeply empathize and connect, and then start reframing. So